Welcome to the Dillweed Society Film Podcast. My name is Max, and my favorite movie is The Brother from Another Planet.
Ooh. Hi, welcome. My name is Vera, and my favorite movie is Akira, or Akira. I'm not sure exactly how you're supposed to pronounce it.
It depends how pretentious you are.
Does it?
It depends how much of a weeb you are.
It's a fun one, though.
It's a great
cool,
movie.
well-animated 80s anime.
Hello, folks. My name is August, and my favorite movie is American Psycho.
Wow.
It's a bit underground.
I've never heard of that movie.
No, many people have. Yeah, it's you should give it a watch. I think you'd like it.
I think that was
I'll
Vera's
consider it.
first favorite movie when she was on the podcast.
That was the one I said for After Yang.
Oh, for After Yang, yeah.
I know.
I know you know.
I listened to that episode. That was the.
But what movie are we discussing today, ladies?
Well,
Today we're discussing the movie Barbarian.
Who directed this movie? Do we know?
We
Yeah.
know who directed it. August is very quickly pulling up who directed it.
Hold on.
The director was Zach Krieger, who was a
Kreger.
writer. Zach Krieger, who was a writer for The Whitest Kids You Know, the TV show.
Is he really?
Yeah, he was one of the original
What?
writers for that.
I don't know
And
that.
Oh my god, I recognize his face. There's no way. He was in some of the sketches even.
We're
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at Zach right
for,
now.
For
Yeah.
the whitest kids you know. He's the gal in a PCP guy. Think
I-
about that.
I think he did actually play a role in the film, but only in voice.
Wow.
In Barbarian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he was the one of the agents for AJ. Yeah.
Oh.
Did you see that somewhere, or was that just a guess?
Yeah, he's credited.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No
That's
way.
funny.
That's wild. I like when directors do that.
Yeah.
It's good
Subtle
touch. So
self-insert.
why don't we start with how we felt about it?
So Barbarian's a horror movie. We didn't say that. Barbarian is a horror movie. I'm not generally a fan of horror movies, although I feel like whatever the top 90% of any genre I don't like is, I tend to like still, because
Mhm.
it's just a good movie that happens to be part of that genre.
Yeah.
We saw Jacob's Ladder this week.
We
too.
did.
See,
Yes.
Jacob's Ladder is awesome. I gotta say, that one was a killer movie.
Right. Like regardless of the genre, I felt that way about Barbarian too. I really enjoyed it. And not even because of the horror elements necessarily, but you can't like pull those apart from the rest of the movie.
So I would say I was fully entertained as the movie progressed. So for me, that's a big metric of how much I like things, is whether I'm entertained and intrigued about what's going to happen next. I was definitely on the edge of my seat. So that's a thumbs up for me. I definitely have more things to say about it, but August.
I'm gonna sit far on the other side of the spectrum here, and I'm gonna say I was actually a little disappointed by it. It set up a lot for me that it didn't really fulfill, and it kind of, I felt it fell into those like very typical tropes that I, have problems with when it comes to horror movies. Which I should be clear, I sit here with you, Max. I'm not a great fan of horror movies.
Well, see,
typically, they're.
I'm not.
I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But I love horror movies. So I've seen quite a few horror movies.
That's why you're here. We need one.
You need one. I don't know. For me, the other question is whether it was actually scary. That's another question.
Was it
It's
scary?
something that I judge my horror movies on, is whether it actually scared the shit out of me.
Okay, let's.
I really don't know how much we can talk about this movie without immediately diving into spoilers.
We could go. Okay, anything technical, anything overview. I have some thoughts, like overview wise, about telling people things that they might be excited about seeing this movie.
Okay.
One, I really liked the 2-act structure of this movie.
I agree.
I thought it was creative.
It was creative. It made me feel like I was listening to an EDM song. Like we had the build up, and then a drop, and then another build up, and then another drop. And it was the second drop hit harder because they showed you things that you didn't get to see the first time. We didn't make it all the way into the depths of horror that we got to see the second time.
Absolutely.
So it did a really good job of edging us, is what I'll say.
You have really relatable analogies. Yeah, I mean, like, it really did have a unique structure, and again, without trying to give away anything, it was definitely jarring, and I think that's always a very intriguing thing to have in a film, is when
Yes.
it can wrestle you, you know.
I would say the setting is something very important for horror movies, and this is a movie that nailed the setting. I cannot imagine a creepier environment than the environment that they end up exploring in this movie.
See, that's where my butt lands firmly on the fence here. Is
Really?
Yeah, is I love the choice of setting, but I didn't feel like they did what they could have done with it. Like, and I think we'll get into that later. Yeah.
Okay, one other thing I'll say about the movie before we start talking details is that I did really like the camera work. The camera work was really interesting. We had a lot of interesting FOVs.
Oh, it was so fun.
Yeah, so there were some giggles being let out when we went into 120 FOV mode, and we got to see, pointed right down his hand. He's extending a gun. He's like,
yeah.
But I think simultaneously, if you allow yourself to kind of, see past the GoPro video, then it does do a good job of capturing like the high adrenaline way that we kind of look out on the world.
And to be clear, I do think it was supposed to be a fun movie. I think that came across in a lot of parts. So I don't think that
there's one scene that comes to my mind that I'm sure
that
you're
we'll
also
talk about
thinking
that.
of.
We'll talk about that.
Would you guys say that people should go see it?
I definitely would. Whether you're a horror fan or not, like I think you should definitely go and give this movie a try, because it's one of those things that you'll get something out of, whether you end up liking it or not. It's a well done, kind of fresh take on how to do that plot.
And I think it does have like more interesting, like deeper themes. I think it's a very feminist horror film, and it explores a lot about like the way that different people see the world differently. I would say it's probably better without spoilers. So
Turn away now, folks. Yeah.
Come back to us.
Close your ears.
You can watch
Oh,
Barbarian.
it's on HBO Max now, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you can watch Barbarian on HBO on Hulu with a premium subscription.
It's on HBO. I know they just added.
Oh yeah.
We're saying it's on the HBO.
Go watch Barbarian on HBO or in a theater, because it's still in theaters.
Go watch it in the theater. That's
fun.
always a
Theater
great
would
experience.
Be a fun
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Barbarian.
All right.
Something I found out about it. It was what's called like a sleeper hit. It did terrible the first weekend and the second weekend box office, but like slowly grew and became really big over time as people started hearing about it, because it didn't get much like ad revenue.
And it's actually I saw the figure they had for funding. They really only had a few mil.
Yeah, it was like 4 mil
for a movie of this.
It felt like a gently budgeted film for sure, and that's not to downplay it at all. Like it did really well with what they had, and but it felt like they weren't trying to pull out everything in the film CGI book or anything of that sort. They didn't.
Well, when you don't have to spend $100 million getting people to animate She-Hulk, then you have a lot more.
You save a
room.
lot. I know. You really free up your budget. Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna start the spoilers.
You have your homework,
now.
folks. Go watch the movie. Spoiler warning right here. Let's go.
Woo!
All right. So, do you want to get into the plot breakdown of it?
The first shot of the movie I actually thought was so pretty.
I agree. The pan up on the house is just, they start from almost underground and it pans up.
Yeah.
I liked it all.
With the what do we call that? The
Which is almost, now that I'm thinking about it, a foreshadowing, because it's almost underground when it starts, that camera shot.
Mm-hmm.
But what were you saying?
What would you call the audio resonance that we had going on there in the beginning? That was very it's the don't give me that look. It's the wailing, the kind of the whole.
What are we talking about?
Do you not remember
I don't
this
remember
from
that.
Maybe this was an auditory
Were you
hallucination
watching
of mine.
Hereditary?
I may have been, yeah, but that kind of that I'm fairly certain that did play out in the beginning, and it wasn't a auditory theme that carried out through the rest of the film, but it was very right there in my face. I felt it. It was good. Yeah, it was a big opening shot, and big opening scene. I feel the
For
Yeah.
real.
How many minutes of
what's the name of her character again? I already forget.
Tess.
Yeah. Okay. So Tess gets to her Airbnb, and it's raining. She's just trying to get in. It's a late night, and there's already someone there. Freaky. His name is Keith, and he looks like an off-brand version of Germa.
Yeah. He looks like Steve Buscemi if he was Germa.
We agreed a young Shemi. Yeah.
Young Shemi.
Young Shemi. And because the movie introduces you with Tess, I think everyone kind of self-inserts as her initially, and we find Keith to be very off-putting initially, and I find myself being very distrustful of him. I warm up a bit, some of the stuff he does, and then I unwarm up a bit with some of the other stuff he does.
We'll see this later when we pan out the plot for you folks, but I think that was a great first taste of what you were talking about the feminism in the film.
Definitely.
And how it really does do a solid job of putting you in the shoes of somebody in that very awkward, uncomfortable situation, and you can really see that kind of thing that women have to deal with. There needs to be a certain level of caution. Obviously, we're going in with the pretenses of a horror film, but going in with the pretenses of it's a dark night in Detroit. I don't know if we presented that yet.
Well, that's one of the other interesting things is that at this point in the movie, we don't even know where she is. Sure. And because it's so dark, we can't see the other houses, which I thought was a really great touch.
Which was made a point of.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'll say before I lose my thought that what you're saying about her, being a woman alone at night, entering a house and there's a strange guy, she hits the nail on the head when she mentions it even more explicitly. Yeah. And she goes, are you kidding me? If I got here first, I would not let you in. There's no way I would let you in. Because he is a seemingly well-intentioned guy, but he still doesn't understand really her experience.
He's a one who doesn't have all the social skills going for him. Yeah,
He could be smoother.
He could be smoother.
He could be more friendly.
Yeah,
I think
especially that scene with the wine.
Pushing the wine.
Everything that came out of his mouth was so awkward.
It was a nice thought to say.
It was a nice thought, but the way he explained it was like, I really wanted you to see that I'm not poisoning you.
We don't see thoughts. That's the thing, right? No. And it does matter how we present ourselves. And I think the movie did a really good job in that first bit where we're unsure as an audience member how to perceive this person. We know we're in a horror film. We know someone's gonna get hurt, and we don't know yet how that's gonna happen. We're put in the shoes of Tess, and we have to watch as we're trying to, with her, navigate. Can I trust this person, and what do I do about it?
I thought it was so funny when you said, as we were watching it, that this would be the perfect setup for a rom-com.
In another movie.
In another movie, in another timeline, it would have been. And they do actually end up having some chemistry once they make a connection about, what he's... how
he's an artist.
He's an artist, and she's a documentary filmmaker.
Too
researcher.
bad about that, huh?
Yeah, too
that
bad
didn't pan
about
out
that.
well.
I so thought he was lying.
I so thought he was lying too. I was like, "There's no way."
You own this house.
You did.
Run the Airbnb.
And I think Tess took some I don't want to say questionable precautions, but she definitely took heavy precautions because I don't know if she fully, and I don't know if we fully ever trusted Keith. That was.
I started to gain trust back in Keith when we were shown that there was another person in the house. When she wakes up in the middle of the night,
let's get there.
And her door is open.
Let's bring the folks with us to this point in the film where Tess and Keith
he
eventually
helps her make her bed.
Right. They they have a good night of drinking, a good night of fun. What was it, as Keith put it on the note, which was a little.
Well,
I had a great night last night. They had a great night.
He had a great night.
Yes. So they go to bed and, boom, it's horror time.
He waits a little bit, right when she's about to go to bed. He's like, "All right."
Yeah.
And he just stares at her for a second or
just
two.
stare at her
but
to
He's
see.
like,
you know-
okay, I'm going to the couch.
Again, already established, Keith doesn't really know how to interact with people that well.
Yeah.
But you can tell he's just waiting to see if she'll be like, "You want to sleep with me?"
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. And like, I think I was rooting a little bit for Keith there. Like, he was trying his
Yeah.
best in the sheets.
I'm rooting for Keith, but at the same time, in Tessa's position, you guys
did
when she
just
didn't
meet,
lock
like-
the door. I wanted to kill her.
No, I still don't think Tess was being precautious enough. I mean, like,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest, I think she let a lot of that
And I'll
those
say
manners come
that
through.
definitely comes back later in the movie. There are
Yes.
so many scenes
Yes.
where I'm mentally screaming at Tess to do something else.
She's way too nice. And
She
too,
is.
Yeah.
And
like, she cares so much about the other people who don't care about her
Yeah.
in the film. Like, this sort of comes out later. but
especially what's his name?
Justin Long's character.
Does he have a name?
We'll talk about.
AJ was his
Yeah,
name.
we'll
AJ.
get to AJ.
Oh, AJ.
That's a case. Anyway, so
Certainly.
it's
the door.
yeah, it's a night. We're set here in the night, and what happens?
The door is open. She wakes up. It's like 3 a.m. or something. Door's open.
Door
and
was closed when she went to sleep.
Exactly. She didn't lock it because she's a baka, but she wakes up, the door is open, and she looks out, and Keith is asleep. And so Keith is like making like weird noises.
Keith is having a rough night, a rough sleep,
Mhm.
not sleeping soundly.
So she slowly meanders over to Keith, and as she's walking over, we get this shot of behind her, the door to the basement closing.
Yeah, Yeah.
So that we know that there's a third person in the house.
something's going on here.
But she's still approaching Keith very cautiously and wants to wake him up and ask if he opened her door, which she does, but because he's having this bad dream and he's having these, creepy moans and stuff, he's awoken and startled as all hell, just as she would have been if he were to do the same to her. And so that immediately kind of backfires, and she realizes that it wasn't him, I
It
guess.
wasn't Keith. So who was it?
Yeah,
Let's
but
find out.
simultaneously
Or was
she
it?
has such an instinct to be polite and to let him be, that when she asks, so was it you that opened my door? He's just like, no, what are you talking about? And she immediately starts like doubting herself and just goes like,
Okay.
oh, who was it?
Yeah.
And just walks back into her room.
We see that a lot with characters, and I think we find it very frustrating. But like putting priority in manner,
No, I
having
get it.
yeah, and having a comfortable relationship with the other characters in the film is often very important for those characters. And we're over here sensing imminent danger, but that's in the context of, we know this is a horror film. We know shit is inevitably going to hit the
Yeah,
fan.
that's fair.
But for these characters, they don't want to be weird. They don't want to be the one to like make it awkward. And that seems so like low on the list of priorities for us, the audience. But I think I got to give Tess a
Hey,
break there, right?
Look, I'll give her a break here, but I think in the future you'll hear me not giving her as many breaks.
That's fine. I think, yeah.
So
She'll take what she can get.
Let's move on. What is the next pivotal scene? She goes to
That's right.
her
So
interview, because that was the whole point of her trip.
I think we skipped over a very important part.
What
Which
did we skip?
We skipped over where she discussed with Keith why she was there.
But that's the connection they had. That's how she warmed up to
No. But it introduces us to Detroit.
Yeah.
It introduces us to what she's involved with which is a documentary on, what was it?
Artist collectives. It was a documentary
But
on.
see, this doesn't even feel relevant to the rest of the film.
I think it is. I do think it is.
August
And
has made the
we'll
connection.
I think we'll get there
Okay.
by the end of the plot summary. But
Okay.
The artist collectives are like finding houses in rundown neighborhoods or abandoned neighborhoods
Mhm.
to start new like artist spaces that they can work from.
right.
That's what she's applying for a job with.
Mhm.
Is the person doing documentary film work
Yes.
on those people.
Right.
Which she has an interview in the morning, which she's going to miss. So she rushes out of the house,
Puts the keys in the lockbox.
Mm-hmm.
arrives at her interview very timely. Good job, Tess.
Yeah. What's up with that?
I
She
don't
wasn't
know.
late at all.
She was very worried. I wasn't worried.
Look, it's human nature.
I wake up 10 minutes before my 20-minute drive to work, and I'm fine. So Tess made it, good interview goes well, except at the end, where
she mentions where she's staying.
Yes. And she's slandered for it. She's
Wow.
scolded.
Not scolded.
Heavily.
She receives a concerned reply. Her interviewee or interviewer says, "Oh, you shouldn't be staying there."
Is the
Her
only other
interviewer
woman in the
says you should
film.
get out.
This is how it passes the Bechdel test.
Is that one of them tells the other not to stay in?
So it qualifies.
Well, would you not care?
No, that counts.
Yeah, no, but I mean...
Max is just not fully on
Two
board
named
with that.
characters
They're-
talk to each other.
What's the name of the interviewer? Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
You got me there.
Max does not pass the Bechdel. Anyway.
Yeah.
She's very adamant that she shouldn't be staying there, that it's not safe. The place where she's being interviewed is so fancy, and it's a very stark contrast when she returns home, or I guess she does get this shot when she's leaving for the interview, which is that she sees the actual houses now in the daylight. Because at night, when the movie starts, we can't see. We see the shape of the houses, but when the sun hits them, they're covered in spray paint. We see, as she's driving to her interview, that there are many that are burnt down, there are many that are just run down and
This is
dilapidated.
not the nice part of Detroit.
It is not the
Yeah.
nice part of Detroit.
The windows are
And
broken in most of the houses.
It makes you wonder, the people that are still there, why are they still there?
Yeah,
you know?
it's sudden. It really does put a very big dissonance between where she is at now, her Airbnb, and
Oh
her
my God.
Airbnb is in
The
such
Airbnb
nice
is
condition.
it's so nice, but
And
it's
suddenly that feels
scary.
very unsettling
Mhm.
in the kind of sea of desolate, abandoned buildings.
Mhm.
And I really like that. I really like that setup. But carry on. Where are we at now?
So she gets back. She is getting she's walking out of her car, and a man starts running towards her, saying, they're just yelling at the top of his lungs.
Hey, little girl, don't go in that house. Don't go in that house, little girl.
Yeah, he's trying to get her attention. We can't really understand what his motivations are.
He's
and
intimidating. He's
He is
raggedy. He's
intimidating.
not in focus on the camera.
He's
and
sprinting
he is
towards
he's a
her.
big
sprinting
man.
at us. Yeah,
He's a big man, too.
We're with Tess here. Get in that house.
Yeah.
Especially after coming from the interview where her interviewer says, you shouldn't be in that area. It's not safe.
We're
Yeah.
agreeing now. She shouldn't be in that area. It isn't safe.
But she rushes to the lockbox, gets the keys out, opens the door, and slams it in his face just in time to save herself.
Mm.
Or so she thinks.
Yes.
Yeah. Why did she go in the basement?
I'm trying to reach that point mentally. I'm trying to get there again. But she calls the police next, right? She says, get over here. There's some guy.
Yeah.
And the police are like, our response time is not up to par.
They
you
say
know?
we don't have any available units.
Yeah,
And I think the police commentary in this movie is also very interesting.
Mm.
Yeah.
Especially when she interacts with the police later in the film.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
So how does she end up in the
I think
basement?
she wanted to
we're
see
lost here.
through the little window down there to see if there was anybody outside.
But that's not why she went
That-
down, is
yeah, I
it?
don't
That
think
doesn't
so.
sound right. All right. Well,
Well, she goes into the basement.
I think it's not inconsequential that we don't know how she didn't end up in the basement, but we'll skim over it anyway. She ends up in
We
the
don't
basement.
have to outline every single
No.
plot point.
I
But
feel
if
it may
we-
have been
come
important.
on, August.
You don't think it was important?
If
No.
we don't remember it,
It doesn't. It's not
it-
important. She goes back down 20 times, even without a reason to.
All right, that's fine.
It's
Vera
also-
is here to move things along.
Everyone has seen the movie. Who's here?
We don't. We don't have to guide them through it.
What about the fools who didn't listen to our spoiler alert?
It's their fault.
It is their fault.
They didn't follow the instructions
You
on the packaging.
imbeciles! Look where you're at now.
We're giving them the highlights, not the play-by-play.
But all
You
of the
should have listened to
all of the
us.
parts that we remember, I think, are important, and the parts that we forget are not important. Is my opinion.
Exactly, because we are correct.
Because the movie as it exists within our mind is what the people are here for.
Tess is in the basement.
Tess is in the basement.
Yeah.
For some reason, she's taking stuff off the
The
shelves.
door locks.
Uh-oh.
Oh yeah, the door locks.
Tess is locked.
For
in the
some
basement.
reason, I don't know who designed this door, but it's a door that slowly closes when you open it,
Well,
and it
we
only
know who
We
unlocks.
do know who
this
designed this
door.
door, actually. Yeah.
Do you really think it's like
We
the same?
do know who designed this door.
But
He
it-
would have.
Look, there's some realism errors here because
Mm-hmm.
the guy that designed the door, it's been remodeled like 20 times since the original house,
Yeah.
and I'm not convinced that the lock on this door is the one thing that has remained consistent.
I'm going to have to ask you to suspend your disbelief for this door.
I'll suspend my belief for the door.
Thank you. And what does Tess find when she's looking around in the basement?
She
Secret
finds a
door.
string, and when she pulls that string, a secret door opens. And she's initially surprised to even find the basement, if I remember correctly.
She's like, oh my god, they have a basement.
Yeah.
Which is not unusual.
It does make you think, though. The door swings in. Couldn't you just push it? Why do you need the rope?
I don't know.
Yeah,
people
actually, that's a
curious.
really good point, because from the inside you would need the rope.
Yeah.
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 You're
I
definitely
guess
not-
They never show us the contraption that opens it for the people that are in there.
True.
I'm not a physics expert, but I think the amount of force you're applying on that rope is not going to be too indifferent from...
Yeah, I would say it would probably take much more effort than what they depicted her
It's got
using.
a gearing system.
This isn't important. What is important is there's now a big, scary hallway.
Oh yeah, I like how she had a little engineering moment here. She was
Mm.
like, it was like the right stuff when they're like, we have this box and we need to fit this hole in that thing with
Yes.
using these tools.
She doesn't have light.
She did because
Yeah.
she left her phone upstairs, which was the scary part for all of us because
Yes.
once we're without our phone, we're helpless, right?
That's why it's always
But,
in my pocket. I always make sure.
She puts the mirror in the right way to get the light going, but it's what she finds down that hallway that's really starts to ignite my adrenaline because she finds this
Oh my God.
camera set up in like this dank, musty room
It's so
that
gross.
is just a bed and a bucket, and my head, I immediately go, oh God, this is human trafficking. This is going to be the most.
This is what Keith does. That's what I thought. Is like
Yeah.
That's what Keith does.
He traps people in the
Especially-
basement. Yeah.
Because once she finds this place, she freaks the fuck out. She runs back out. She starts tapping on the window. She sees Keith. Keith helps her out, right? But then she's saying, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here anymore. And Keith doesn't believe her. He's mansplaining. He's saying he's just not believing her experience at all. She says that there's a bed and a bucket. And to be fair, she doesn't really capture it, like the full magnitude of it.
Yeah.
But simultaneously, he just does not believe a word she says, and it's very frustrating
Keith
to
is
watch
just
this
there
conversation
to
happen.
move the plot along at that point. Keith is
Yes.
not helping Tess here. Yeah. I
Yeah, he
mean,
doesn't
like, this
believe
is
her at all.
not... That's not how you approach
So
somebody who's in that
he
kind
says
of
that he
situation.
has to investigate it for himself.
Yeah.
And she makes the grave mistake of saying, yes, I'll wait for you if you get locked in like I did.
Well, she's so
Because she's
dedicated
too
to Keith at this
empathetic.
She
point.
should have
Yeah,
just left.
She should have just left.
Many points. She could have just taken off.
I feel like this whole movie and Tess's character in particular is definitely an effective commentary on being too empathetic and too caring,
Mm.
and how it's actually very bad for you sometimes.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Well, I think there are things to be said about that, and a certain other character.
A certain
we'll
other
cover
character
in the future. Yeah.
AJ.
Not AJ actually, but
Who are you thinking of?
No, we'll get there. Anyway.
Okay.
So Keith does go investigate.
But he finds another secret room
Oh
in the secret
my
room.
gosh.
Yes.
Okay, why? Why do you go down there?
I don't know, because when you open this second secret room, it is terrifying.
It's a dungeon.
It is literally chiseled out of the stone.
I think it was covered clearly by Tess. I found a room with a bed and a bucket and a camera. That's all that was there. That all Keith had to do was go see the room with
But
the
I
bed,
think
boom,
it is
boom, bucket.
really funny, and it does kind of capture like the hetero male blind confidence of just like
What's down here?
finding a dungeon and
You're
just being
not
like,
wrong.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's let's go.
I would do that. I can't lie. I would do that.
Like, she had to set up a whole, like, apparatus to set up light to just walk in the little place. It was a whole scene. He just walks
straight down into the depths of the dungeon.
Oh my god.
Reckless decision making. We love it in a guy until it gets you in a dungeon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So dumb.
But then, so she goes back down to investigate.
With her phone now.
With her phone now. But she realizes that he's not in the room that she had already discovered and makes the discovery of the new passage. And that's when she starts calling his name and hears his cries for help. Help me! Yeah. Somebody help me!
Oh my god.
So,
I was convinced it was still a honeypot.
I was also convinced it was still a honeypot.
I think that's valid. Yeah, up until
though it's not
the
very
exact second.
It's not
yeah,
very
up
honey.
So
there's not much honey there.
Oh, come on.
No, like, I mean, he could have already got her if he was trying to get her.
It's true.
He
A
didn't
moldy milk pot then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tess does go down, and she finds Keith.
And he's like, we can't go out.
He's a little worse for wear.
He said he got bit.
He got bit
By
by
somebody.
somebody down here.
Because they're both hysterical at that point.
Yes.
And he says, you need to understand there's someone else in here.
What
She's like,
happens?
we have to
They
leave.
disagree.
He says we have to go deeper. That's the only way out.
Yeah. Because he thinks that the person that he's running from is where Tess came from. But that turns out not to be the case.
And this is where my favorite character is introduced.
Yeah. Does she have a name? Does she pass the Bechdel test?
I think
I
I'll
don't
call her
the Barbarian?
Ooh, very good. But I don't think that's who the Barbarian was.
I
No.
agree with you.
No, yeah.
Interesting.
I think there's a very
There's a worse barbarian.
there's
There
a
is a
worse
worse
barbarian.
barbarian.
There's someone more barbaric in the film than this
That's true.
towering.
She is scary, but she's not a... Oh, it's complicated.
It's complicated. We'll get into it. We haven't covered the
We could
bulk
call
of
her-
information here. So let's just say she's a bit of a beast, a bit of a savage, if you will, and she bodies Keith. I mean, like, Keith is done. Spoiler,
Mhm.
big spoiler number 1, out. Keith no longer in the roster.
Yeah.
The prosthetics on her are crazy.
Do you
Like, we were
think-
talking about
I
the
wonder
budget.
how much of her was CGI and how much of her was practical
You
effects.
could tell a lot of it was practical.
Yeah.
Like, her face, I think,
yeah.
was all practical.
Yes,
It's
definitely.
very impressive.
It was
to be honest.
very. I mean, like, especially with the lighting in those scenes in the tunnels was amazing. That was really well done. I think when later,
Definitely
when
felt
they-
like I was playing a horror game. You know,
Mhm.
I think oftentimes I can sit through horror movies, but it's horror games where they do such a good job because they have the freedom of designing the spaces themselves that they can very easily put you in a very claustrophobic space where there's someone walking towards you
Yes.
and you gotta
Oh.
get away.
Mm.
that
It is the exact mentality that movie put me in.
those tunnels really. I mean, I feel almost carried the fear for me there. Like, once
Mhm.
they got outside later in the film, sorry, but when they get outside later in the film, I think a lot of that drops off.
I agree.
Less fearful.
Yeah, which is okay. That's the inevitability of
You
any
know,
horror
I
film,
do think
but-
that there was another layer of the fear there, which was that it's depicted as her kind of like hunting them almost.
Yeah.
And so then it almost feels like nowhere is safe, like that she could come from anywhere.
Sure.
But I agree with you that the setting was huge in scaring me.
Yeah.
So let's.
And then, boom, he's dead. Hard cut.
She
We're in
gives
the-
she gives a bellowing
Now
yell.
we're on the highway. We're in a Ferrari or a Porsche or
Now,
something.
what are you talking about, Vera? I thought we were just in the tunnels.
No.
We were just.
No,
on
Forget
the
about
highway.
that.
forget about that. We're singing along to Sweet
I don't
Caroline.
think it's a. I think it's a Porsche.
We're
to be clear,
we're singing
But,
along
yeah,
to
you know.
some cheesy song.
It's like the California coast. It's like Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm. He's living his BoJack Horseman lifestyle.
Who is this guy?
He gets a call, is who he is, and he
He's having a great day.
he's having a great day when he
This-
gets some bad news.
And what's the news, Max?
He should have known. One of his co-stars on a pilot that just got picked up told the showrunners that he raped her. And so they dropped him from the show. And he is really pissed off about that because he's like, I didn't do anything. she's lying, whatever.
Yeah, that bitch, blah blah blah.
You know, I find it. This is the foretold AJ, by the way.
AJ.
I feel like it was an interesting choice in the dialogue to actually not have AJ initially even deny the accusations. That was not even present in the initial call.
Really? I didn't even notice that.
I was trying to wait. I was waiting for him to say something like,
because he
it didn't happen like that is sort of like the closest thing he said to it.
I don't know if he even said that. What I think was interesting about the initial call is that he was almost caught off guard by it.
Absolutely.
He didn't expect it to happen at all, and that ties into another thing I said later in the movie, which is that he there's a scene where he is justifying his actions to his friend.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even realize what is wrong about what he's saying. So for me, hearing him on that call not even try to deny anything is hearing that he doesn't even really know what he did. That doesn't excuse it by any means.
No.
I think we see the asshole archetype character in horror films a lot, and I think AJ's a really. I mean, this film did its characters very well. I really thought AJ was a really good highlight of the issues.
The issues.
Yeah. The issues with this kind of character, like why. I don't think AJ was as simple as just being a malicious dickhead, which he could have easily been.
Yeah.
But I think there was the little bit of nuance and complexity to his character that actually did comfortably sit him into filling out his conceptual and meaningful role in the film and the relationship to the other characters.
Yeah, coming away from the movie, that was sort of the thing that I thought it did most interestingly, conceptually, was the way that it sort of has this spread of ways that men can be harmful, going from Keith, who's like just ignorant of the way that he has an effect on women.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good guy.
He's like he's not even actively harmful. He just is ignorant of the way that he like.
You can be actively harmful and ignorant at the same time.
Oh,
he's
no,
just not trying to be harmful.
That's what I mean about AJ is ignorant and actively harmful.
Yeah.
But I also don't think like.
And later we're introduced to a character who is.
I don't remember his name, but
I don't even know if we're given his name.
We are by the
when AJ discovers the content on those tapes made by this guy.
I think we're getting ahead of ourselves here. I think we should.
We don't have to go in order, August.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay.
I just wanted to.
We'll hit on it.
We'll get to everything.
But I think if we talk about this is like a good point to talk about
because
these
he
themes.
is appalled by what he finds on these tapes. He
Right.
is appalled by the notion that this guy has been trafficking women and abducting them and doing God knows what to them. We're thankfully not shown the tapes.
I'm very glad actually. That
but even for AJ, who we know is an abuser or rapist, that is still terrifying to him because he is still thrown into kind of the headspace of someone that is doing this shit intentionally,
right.
that is like actually just a sadist, like in a really like meaningful way.
Yeah, and trying not to put too much commentary on this sensitive issue. I think it well highlights the strong difference between somebody who is aware of the kind of essential crime against humanity that they're committing and somebody who isn't, because I mean those two things, what the two individuals we're talking about, AJ and the
Barbarian,
the human trafficking man, were doing, were not as conceptually dissimilar as maybe one would like to believe. Just your intentions really don't kind of mean jack shit. In the end, you are
your actions.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
do you think that AJ actually understands that? I don't think he ever gets that in the film.
That he is only his actions?
Or that he and the Barbarian are not very different.
No, I think definitely not. I don't think that was really important Like, I don't think he needed that arc to
No.
figure that out, because
I don't think he's redeemable.
The closest he gets to any form of self-realization is this one kind of self-absorbed paragraph he has where he goes,
Oh my God.
maybe I am a bad person.
Yeah. All I can do is change what I'm going to do in
Yeah.
the future. That's what he says.
Yeah.
And then he immediately like throws her off the building.
Yeah,
It's
there's
funny
definitely, like...
because right after proclaiming that he'll change and that the only way he can redeem himself is by acting better, he immediately makes a very selfish decision.
You
Yeah.
said when we were watching it, or... I think it was... Who was it? One
was
of you
Max.
said... Max said when we were watching it, about how
He's so
committed...
full of himself.
Yeah,
That's
AJ
what he
is
said.
to his... Like, to the self-image, the image that he presents to others.
Which
Mhm.
makes sense for a movie star, to be fair.
Yeah,
It's in
no, I
character.
think I think it makes a lot of sense for the character, and I think it is definitely very important to highlight that kind of thinking in that nature of individual, the male kind of trying to be alpha, you know, like this just trying to present a very kind of specific thing that American culture has really pushed about what we should look like as men. You know, we can do bad things in our past, but we have that ability to redeem ourselves through what we do in the future. And I think that's a terrible set of ideals to push. And I think the fact that, like you said, AJ is not redeemed or redeemable here is a good thing to point out.
I almost am rooting for him to redeem himself, but then he just doesn't.
I think
he just
we'd like to
doesn't
see-
act better at all throughout the film.
we
That's
would
very
like to see it
realistic, yeah.
happen, yeah, but it just doesn't happen, and I think that's very much reflective of what we do see in
Yeah.
people of that kind of character.
But when it comes down to it, yeah, they don't redeem themselves.
So the first part where he doesn't redeem himself for me is when he actually winds up in the same shitty scenario that Tess does. He walks down into that basement. He's in the dungeon. He's measuring it with a tape measure because he thinks he can list it as
Oh my
extra
God.
square footage.
Yeah, we're skipping a good amount ahead here, but like, yeah,
August.
Stop.
Stop.
There's a couple good parts in between here. I feel like okay, one, he absolutely doesn't believe that he's in the wrong because he's waging like a $70,000 countersuit, right?
Yeah.
Like he so firmly
the
believes that he
discussion
didn't
with the
do
friend
anything wrong
at the bar.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
He goes to a bar. He explains that like his perspective on how the sexual assault went, and he's like, I didn't do anything wrong. After explaining like just a very typical sexual assault.
He said he had to convince her that
Yeah.
she said no at first, and then he buttered her up for it or whatever else.
Yeah.
And his friend is obviously not really buying it, which I think is a good thing. That even the male confidant in this situation is going like, dude, do you even know what you're saying right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's definitely a fucked up scene where our suspicions are confirmed, obviously, that like this guy is just an asshole.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna let you carry the rest of the plot here, so I don't
It's
try and
okay.
hold us up. No, I don't want to.
I just want us to get through it all.
Yeah.
Definitely, let's go. Let's
Basically,
do it.
I think like whatever plot points we can have comments on, I feel like are going to be the interesting ones that are going to end up in the
So
final
that's what I was
pod.
saying is when he ends up in the basement, captured in the same scenario that Tess was.
Mhm.
That's when we see that Tess is still alive,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is actually a shocker for us,
Mhm.
considering what happened to Keith.
And we're
learned
also
that
given the
it's
time span for how long that is. Like,
A few
2
weeks.
weeks.
Yeah. And he is thrown into the same kind of prison pit with her. But what does he do?
Well, we see that the mother basically wants to take care of them like babies.
Yeah.
So she keeps them in this cage, and she has this VHS of like a
Like-
baby nurturing video from
Yeah.
the 1950s.
Yeah.
And so she like feeds them with a bottle and stuff.
And it's really gross.
It's
to be
so
honest.
disgusting. Her fingernails are so long.
Part of the fear in this setting is just people being grossed out by the concept of like being forcibly like nursed with milk as a grown adult.
It's so gross.
It's really fucking gross.
it's unsettling for sure, but like you start like I
You
guess like
definitely
you
start
start
to
to see
empathize with
you start to see the tragedy in this character, the mother, in this scene where she really is just a very unfortunate and misguided case where she just happened to be in this situation and she really does want to mother a child.
Yeah.
That simple, very primal instinct and learning that she engages in, especially for Tess, our main character, is, I just found, like, I think as touching as it was meant to be by the end of the film, and as disgusting as it is that you could be put in this situation, like, how unfortunate it is that she is made into what she is because of the circumstances around her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who we sort of figure those out. We see who this man. Who's
Yeah.
also
So
in the
this is
dungeon.
a flashback. You could, not really a flashback. It's a covering of past events.
The neighborhood used to be like a very normal 1950s neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
All the other houses used to be well kept. And it seems like everyone, like, the contrast in this flashback is so different. I think it says a lot about suburban decay in the United States, that the only person who's left in this neighborhood who, like, maintains this house is there because it's a apt place for trafficking women and abducting them. Yeah, so we see the original owner of the house, really weird guy, just, like, man of few words, very off-putting. He's, like, always has this kind of determined, mean look on his face.
I
I loved these GTA third person shots we have of him as he's going about his day. I don't know, it was a fun way of presenting.
Yeah, there was a lot of that interesting tracking shots in the film.
But so this is the Barbarian. It's the guy that traffics.
That's who we're calling the Barbarian. That's right.
That's how,
I think
it's the
we're
Barbarian.
all in agreement that this individual who is abducting women and torturing them in his basement is
If you
definitively,
can even call it a basement.
yeah, a very barbaric individual. And this is he records these things, and these are the tapes we were referring to earlier, that AJ watched and was disgusted by.
So he finds himself there. AJ finds himself in the Barbarian's room as an adult. We see him, like, go into a woman's house as a repairman and then open a window so that he can...
The Barbarian.
Yeah, the Barbarian in this flashback. That seems to be, like, one of the ways that he is abducting people, is pretending to be a repairman, opening their window, and then, like, coming in at night and abducting them. AJ, like, in running away from the mother, comes into his room in the basement where he just sort of, like, lies in bed. AJ sees all these tapes, and then the Barbarian is like, hand me my this wardrobe that's next to him. He reaches in, pulls out a gun, and just shoots himself in the head.
Yeah, that was strange for me. Like,
Why did he kill himself?
Did that feel normal to you? Like, I
didn't
guess
get-
not
I
much
didn't
felt
get
normal
why.
there, but yeah, I didn't really.
I thought that he was trapped down there, like he couldn't
I
get
thought
out.
it was also interesting that the mother was scared. Like, she
Right.
didn't want to enter that room, which,
Yeah.
you know, it makes sense in retrospect, like, that she is also a victim of his abuse.
Yeah.
Yes.
But simultaneously, who was taking care of him? Because he was bedridden.
And
Like,
we clearly
what
see
was
that,
happening
yeah,
there?
this guy is not able to stand up against this woman. The mother is very physically apt, clearly, as we're shown in the film. Very tall,
I mean,
imposing,
she can
strong.
rip people's head open.
Yeah,
like
rip
in
people's
two.
arms off, and she's scared of this old frail guy who we learn later is her
Father.
fucked up father.
Father, but
Yeah.
also genetic relative
Yeah.
in other ways. So the canon here is that he would abduct someone, have a kid with them, raise that kid, and then repeat the cycle with the kid.
Yes,
Freaky.
very fucked up.
So fucked up.
Very gross.
Yeah.
But yeah, so where are we at in the film?
They two, so yeah, through a series of hijinks, like the Scooby-Doo running from room to room, Tess and AJ end up getting out.
Well, AJ is still with the Barbarian. Tess runs out.
Oh, Tess gets out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
With the help of the homeless man from earlier.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
helps
he
her
does
climb
actually
out.
help her out.
Yeah, and she's like, I need to go back and save AJ.
Because she's an idiot,
She
right?
truly
Again,
is too-
This is all about the overextension of empathy being actually destructive.
Far past her own good.
Mm-hmm.
Far past
the overall good.
Yeah.
Like it's at
Ends
a
up being
point
worse
where
for both of them, yeah.
it's worse for everyone that she actually
And this isn't just because AJ's an asshole. That's just not, even if AJ was this nicest person down there, you're right. I think like we need to learn
because she goes back down to try and save him,
Yeah.
and AJ ends up shooting her, thinking that she is the mother.
Yeah.
Because it's a dark hallway, whatever.
He's on edge. He's scared.
He's on edge.
Like,
he's got
it
the gun
happens.
from the Barbarian.
She gets shot. She's not dead. She gets shot, and AJ does help her out, get her back out of that basement.
Wait, we totally skipped my favorite part, which was her going to the gas station and begging the police to please go down there and save him.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's still down there, and he's already killed one person, Keith.
Yeah, she contacts the police again. And
the police just think she's like a crackhead. They don't want to spend any time with her at all.
They're like, sure, lady. There's someone
literally
held
like,
in
they
a
just get
house
a call
somewhere.
that's like, like some completely unrelated thing.
that is a great scene, and I think it covers a lot of things on. I do want to talk about that. Why do you like that so much?
Because I feel like it captured an experience that's very common for people in America, but that people don't really get to see outside of body cam footage.
I think it was a great covering of the fundamental issue with police, which is that we do expect a single unit, the whole police force to deal with every single potential issue.
And we
that
see
present to
that
them.
when there's no units available, but for me this is more of a commentary on how they are not designed
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
to
we
fulfill
you
all
can't-
these niches.
Yes, this is the problem with the police, is that we fundamentally can't expect a single group of people to deal with all these different situations. We need specialties, and that's clearly shown being problematic here. They don't know how to deal with the situation, and so they've learned to just ignore situations like this because it's not their specialty. They deal with other things, traffic violations, violent offenses. Just tons
But this
of
is
other
a violent
responding-
offense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
but
responding to,
What's
like,
the problem is that he won't listen to her.
I think the problem is that we're not. When you look at a situation like that, you have to decide: is this an actual danger to society issue, or is this an individual issue where this woman is having?
Giving him too much credit.
I don't really care about the police officer. I'm saying I think fundamentally this is a problem where they have to. If you're in that situation as a police officer, you have to decide: am I going to respond to this call, or am I going to respond to this call? Am I going to spend time trying to figure out with this individual who I believe, based on my prior experience, is not sound of mind?
But you're making them sound like they're rational actors.
Well,
They're not.
but I think we should pretend for a second. Let's say they are rational, right? I think this is a fundamental issue with the police system. Is that, let's say we have the most rational-minded person here.
Even if they were the most rational-minded person,
yes.
it would be a shit situation for them to be in, because you would never be able to get good outcomes in all scenarios. I agree with you.
Yes.
I just mean that the character that they portray and the average police officer, he is so unwilling to believe a word she says that it is so incredibly frustrating to watch.
Yeah, but I think that's a learned behavior due to circumstance.
Sure.
Right? Like, I think because when you're put in that situation over and over and over again, you learn that's how you respond to it, and you don't want to take it on the individual.
How many situations? I'm just not convinced that police officers every day end up in a situation where there's a woman saying, "Please, I've been held prisoner for 2 weeks."
Well, do you really? I mean, do you really not? I think it's a valid thing to look at. Like, say a place like Detroit, where there are a lot of people who are maybe on the street, who are under the influence of heavy amounts of substances, whatever that may be, and might be spouting what people would consider nonsense, something like that. I've been assaulted, held prisoner. I've been, you could say any number of things, and you would be branded as ridiculous when it's revealed that you're just kind of, exploding these things in your mind a little bit. It's just not, I'm not fully disagreeing with you, and I don't think you're fully disagreeing with me here about we just don't have a good system to deal with that. And clearly it shows in this movie. Like,
it does. I think at the end of the day, that's what the commentary here is that they fail to do their job. They fail to help her in any meaningful way.
Definitely.
And from her perspective, they don't even consider the possibility of listening to her. Before she's even started talking to them, he says, "Yep, I'll respond to that in 10 minutes."
Yeah. He already agrees to leave.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he has prejudged whether she's worth talking to. And when she like asks for help, he's like, "Please take your hands off the car, please."
Yes.
Yeah. So it is a great scene. I'm glad you did stop us to cover that.
Yeah. So she just gets no help at all. These two like male police officers believe that she's just someone like who's hysterical, and have decided that she's not worth talking about unless they threaten to take her into prison, which is the other thing. They're like, maybe you can sleep off whatever you're on in jail.
See, for me, I read it as willful ignorance. I think they just didn't want to bother. I don't think they actually thought she was a crackhead. That's why I don't give them as much credit.
Yeah, what made you read it that way?
Their entire demeanor.
Yeah,
it was like they obviously just didn't care.
Yeah,
that's how it felt for me.
And that must have been how it felt for her too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how, if we're looking at it from her shoes, that's how we're supposed to feel in the movie.
And I think, to be clear, we're not saying that we shouldn't care about crackheads on the street. Like, I think you're right. That is a big problem. Is that's not how you should approach somebody who is potentially under a lot of substance and maybe a danger to themselves. But we've kind of gotten to that habit, especially in larger and less affluent districts, where we just kind of ignore that kind of thing and we accept it.
Okay, we do not have the...
You're right, we don't have the time to cover a wide scale, yeah. But I think
we're not going to start talking about...
Again, it does weave into the film somewhat about like this...
It does, but we're not qualified for this.
No, definitely not. But I think like we should also mention the fact that like... Or I want to mention the fact, rather, that I did want to see the film get into that more.
Yeah.
About it opened up with that great opener of being in a very impoverished area and having that very, as I mentioned before, clear, distinct difference between the affluent and not. Mm-hmm. Right? This area is abandoned by people and by society, and like I think I'm gonna jump over real quickly.
Yeah, no worries.
To Jordan Peele. And his work, because my favorite thing about what he's done with the horror genre recently is making horrible things horror, as in things that are actually terrible, things that are terrifying. I'm not big in horror because a lot of times we look at things like demons, ghosts, paranormal things, and there's not much substance to why this is a scary thing besides it looks unsettling.
The fear of
right?
the unknown.
Yeah,
right.
Sure. But I really prefer Jordan Peele's style of focusing on something like, say, racism, a very scary thing that exists in our country, and making it scary.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to see this movie get really into that and making our approach to poverty in the United States a scary thing again, because it is terrifying that we have kind of accepted the way that a lot of people just live like this. That's not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it does do that. I think that it's a very deeply feminist film. I just don't think that it focuses on poverty in that way, even though that this would be a good setting and like horror plot that to explore that with. I just don't think it takes it that way.
It certainly didn't, and I just would have liked to see that. But
that would
again, don't get me wrong, still love the film.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I gotta say,
what?
It's not my favorite horror film.
Really?
It's not my favorite horror film. Because I just can't get behind Tessa's behavior.
Wow.
I love her, like I empathize with her, but simultaneously it's one of those movies where as I'm watching it, I'm just screaming, please do something else. It was scary, but at the same time, I feel like Jacob's Ladder, for example, had more of an effect on me because he is reacting reasonably to everything that he's seeing. He's freaking out when he should be freaking out, and he's running when he should be running. I mean, she willingly throws herself back into danger so many times that it doesn't feel like a realistic self-insert for me. I'm like, I would have been gone. I would have left the tri-state area by now. You wouldn't hear from me.
That's a very common criticism of horror films, right? Like that these characters are not being rational. These characters should try and get out of this situation not try and confront it and find solutions to it because they're clearly not apt for it.
Yeah.
So, like, it's interesting you say that because I don't know if that takes away from a horror film as much as it clearly does for you to look at the lead character or lead characters and say, you're not making the decisions I would be making here.
For me, it's something is most terrifying when it's inescapable. She was able to escape. She just chose not to.
You're right. Yeah,
it was
I think
so
that's
frustrating.
a great. Yeah, it turns more into frustration than it does fear. You're no longer saying this is an imminent danger. You are the one putting yourself in that danger. So I can't really be scared about this. I'm just angry. Why did you do that to yourself? Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
For me, that detracted from the second act. Was it was harder for me to put myself in her shoes and to be scared.
Yeah.
I guess part of it to me was that she couldn't get away because she cared so much about not letting this other person go through what
inescapable.
Yeah, because she is basically she and the mother are the only two characters who care about anything except for themselves, really, in the film. You know?
Ouch, Keith.
I mean, Keith is neutral, I feel like.
Yes, definitely.
Keith is just like a neutral person.
It's neutral salt. But so, how would you say that the mother ends up manifesting the way that she cares about other people?
Like, she doesn't know how to care for other people, and she doesn't understand that other people, I guess... She doesn't understand the way her actions affect other people.
So isn't she more like AJ in that way?
She is kind of like AJ in that way. That she thinks that she is doing something, that she's helping people, or that she's like engaging in caring for somebody when in fact she is harming them and imprisoning them. But she's doing it not out of a selfishness, but out of like a desire to care for other people, like at the end.
She's replicating her own trauma.
Exactly.
Like she is reliving and reperforming the same patterns of behavior that she experienced. It's all she knows. It's the only way that she knows how to express affection.
Yeah.
I think the way I read it was kind of in line to what I wanted from the film, which is she is the epitome, the purest form of a product of her environment, born out of the kind of barbaric, repulsive behavior of this kind of very, I think we can all agree, rather malicious individual.
You could say.
You could say.
Barbaric almost.
Yeah, very much so. But she's clearly a kind of, to us, a repulsive product of that, very scary, very unsettling, a gross individual with the purest intent. I think that it's something to be said, like, what is more pure than just wanting to mother a child, right? Like, just wanting to provide for the life you're making and you're giving. And that's a very pure thing. And it doesn't matter because she's a product of her environment. And that's crafted her into this very monstrous, scary thing that we just want to see die. We just want to see get killed. And I don't want to try and make this super socio-political again, but you can look at that in a way how that attaches itself to things like impoverished individuals and how we societally look at that in like a more well-off position. How we can say like what we want about these people, and doesn't matter their intentions. They're simply a product of their environment, and they're scary for that reason alone. They bother us for that reason alone, because of what they've been made into.
For me, I read it much more about generational trauma than about like how others perceive that trauma, I guess. For me, it was more about her own internal struggle of trying to shake off what she knows, and how is she able to manifest a form of kindness.
And I think no matter if you take that approach or this one, that's a very valid approach, it's still not really her, right? It's not so much her that...
Because I'm rooting for her. I want her to...
Right.
I don't know. I would love for her to not be as scary.
This is an individual. Yeah. The mother is an individual that you feel sad for, and I think a question is, why do we feel sad for her? Is because she's not at all responsible for the situation she's been put in, whatever that reason may be. Like, she is
a victim,
yeah.
Just like Tess.
And also abusive.
Just
as
like,
is often
as
the
is
case.
AJ.
As is often the case.
Yeah.
yeah.
Victims become abusers too.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those themes carried the movie. You know, after you watch a movie, I feel there's this period of marinating, you know, where you're trying, where you either the movie gets worse or gets better in your mind after watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big part of that, for me at least, is what themes in it do I see, and how are those themes expressed in the like little parts of the movie that I didn't get while I was watching it. I liked the themes in this, and I thought that the more I thought about it, the better it got. What did you two think?
I think, yeah, I like your point about like marinating on a film, because you do have to come away a little bit from the initial like shock, especially with a horror film. The initial like boom, it's in your face. You just saw this spectacle of information. Now you have to process it, and once you process it, what do you get away from that? What do you still retain from the film? And yeah, I covered before. I think I succinctly covered my thoughts on the film, which is like, I think thematically it got a little lacking in the end, which I feel most horror films suffer from. But this one it was just that much closer, and I'm rooting for the next one. You know, like I really want to see that horror film that follows these tropes in the way that I love personally. But you know, it was other than that, it was very fun. It was a very good movie to watch. It was never too jarring at any point where I was like, I would have disagreed about making like this one specific decision. But like, yeah, overall, it had something to work with, and it did a pretty good job with that.
I liked it a lot. I think it should have gone deeper on the terror aspects of the setting, right?
Yeah.
We see these cages where they're like food bowls and such, and everyone that sees them is terrified of like, what is going on here? But we never learn what's going on there more in detail. I mean, they don't actually get locked up in those. They don't and you know, I don't want to sound like a masochist just by saying it should have been scarier, but it feels like most of it was run and hide and seek basically, and that's fun, but it's just not what scares me the most. So it was not a perfect horror movie for me, because it just didn't get me that way. I loved the themes that it explored, but at the same time, it almost felt like it was trying to do too much for me. So I enjoyed the movie. I was entertained throughout the entire movie, but it's not my favorite movie.
No.
Do we give number ratings here?
Yeah. Do we feel like we've given our real impression of the movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think
Yeah.
so too. I guess we didn't. It is humorous in parts. Like, I think the most humorous scene is AJ measuring the basement.
For me, I thought the most humorous scene was when the guy that saves them is sitting there and he goes, she's like, are you sure we'll be safe here? And he goes, I've been living here for 15 years and she ain't never. And boom, right behind him.
Looney Tunes wall opens up behind him with the
Really?
shape of her.
God.
Yeah. It has very funny moments.
Definitely.
Again, I think it's one of those films you can come away from, and no matter how you feel about the genre, how you feel about the themes it's trying to cover, you'll get something out of it. It's a fun film to watch. It's a good film.
Yeah, I agree. I think part of what you didn't like about it, in the not being terrifying, was what I liked about it. I don't really like terrifying horror films.
I think for me, a lot of the fear in movies can dissipate when I see the boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, I loved the Babadook until I met the Babadook.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay, well, it's
That's
just
a
the
guy in a hat.
Babadook.
Yeah.
You know, it's same with Mama, same with many other horror movies, where it feels like once they reveal the villain to me, it's not as scary anymore. Because for me, it is that primal fear of the unknown, fear of the thing lurking around the corner that really gets my blood churning, boiling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to be clear, that doesn't mean... I think that doesn't mean you can't ever reveal your monster. I mean, like...
I agree. I think
thought
the way that they depicted the quote-unquote monsters in this movie was really well done. It's just...
I think having it in the... Like, you can maintain the unknown without not having ever seen this thing. We saw the mother at, like, about halftime of the film.
But what I mean is, in this movie, the way that they reveal the monster is by revealing that she is actually just a person. You know, that she is really just
Sure.
someone that is hurt and someone that is almost
But you
relatable.
don't feel, okay, so interesting, because for me, I feel like...
Then it becomes less scary
I
because
feel-
you know it's just a person.
Yeah, but it's all about presentation, right? You know,
Okay.
especially when it comes to a movie. Like, that's all there is presentation. And I think for me personally, it became more terrifying when you saw this individual living in these kind of catacombs under this house, and they're dark, and you know they're down there.
I just
Like,
want to know where they were getting groceries, to be honest.
That was a great question. He had so many like Mountain Dew cans in his floor.
Yeah.
Where'd he get those?
And she was built. I mean, like, how did she... Forget the whey powder. I mean,
I don't
need what
think
she's
they
doing.
have any Trader Joe's out there.
No,
is all
I
I'll
don't-
say.
Maybe the gas station. She
Mhm.
just walks over to the gas station every night.
Go to their local Whole Foods, yeah.
Yeah.
Star ratings? What do we think?
I want you to go first, Matt.
Should
Yeah.
I?
Yeah, I think you're the host, so you have to.
I will give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars.
August?
Can I switch it up and do 10 stars? I like doing it on a 10-star rating. Or are
Oh.
you going to cut this out and
Just
Well,
take
impose?
whatever's in
If
your
you-
mind and divide by 2.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. All right, so in that case, I'm giving it a 3...
You can't do 0.75 or 0.25.
It has to be a
To the-
0.5 is the...
You gotta round it.
Really?
Yeah.
Then 3.5 out of 5.
Okay.
I was going to say the exact same number.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
Mhm. I think it sits comfortably there.
it does.
Yeah.
I see. I loved all the filmmaking aspects of it. It just failed as a horror movie for me. The setting carried it. I think if it were a game, I would have been terrified. I would have been losing my mind in that basement. But
Product idea, maybe?
hey,
Yeah.
Barbarian.
Someone
If
get
you're
in touch with
listening-
A
Zach.
video game adaptation.
Mr. Kreger,
Mr. Zach, if you know, we got some ideas here. Yeah.
Have you ever wanted to be able to nominate or vote in ceremonies like the Oscars or the Emmys? Have you ever loved a feature so much only for it to be swept under the rug? Because I know I have. Well, worry no more, because we at the Doughy Society host a non-exclusive movie award ceremony each year in February. And if you apply to become associate, you can nominate any movie you like and vote on the collective nominations. It's completely free. It takes 2 seconds. Just visit apply.doughySociety.com and we will send you all the active information. You can also browse our website, doughySociety.com, and see our archive, and there's a bunch of other cool stuff there. Email us at doughySociety@gmail.com if you have any complications or questions. All right, that's my spiel. Back to the show.
Okay, Vera, go first.
hi, my name is Vera. No, wait, we don't have to be like that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
no, this
do
is
it
fine.
again.
We're gonna
don't
do it
even,
again.
No, don't do it again. Don't do it again. We're running with
No,
this.
give it
Put
a
this
clap.
in.
Give me another clap. Give me
Okay,
another clap.
wait. Ready?
So, even though I don't think it came out this year, what I'm going to recommend is the anime Dorohedoro on Netflix. It is a really well done world building vibe, very cool character designs, a fun blend of 2D and 3D animation, very well choreographed fight sequences, and just a plot that keeps you interested.
It's very creative animation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stick with animation as our little theme here.
Mm.
And I'm actually going to recommend a film that we will be seeing soon, Triplets of Belville.
Ooh.
I think that's a film that not enough people have seen. It's a French animated film. I don't want to get into much because it could be a spoiler-heavy movie, but it follows a aspiring cyclist and his mother, and I think everyone can get a lot of fun out of it.
That's exciting. I'm recommending the video essay Fear of Big Things Underwater by Jacob Geller. You can find that on YouTube. It is a exploration into myths and historical fact surrounding large sea creatures and why people find them so scary and why there's so many historical myths about them. I think it was, as always, a very polished, professional, and interesting video essay. Big recommend. All right. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for having us on, Max. It's been a
Pleasure to be here as always.
As always. I hope you have me on again, but chances of that are low.
No, you should come on.
I'm looking into your eyes and I'm seeing it's not there.
I'll
Nah.
prove you wrong. I'll prove
me
you wrong.
All right.
All right.
Lovely speaking with you both.
It was very lovely. This was a fun movie.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Slay.
Slay.
Slay Queen.
please cut that out. I'm gonna kill someone if you don't cut that out.